Hello and welcome to the Girl Fit Method podcast. I'm your host, Natasha Wakefield, and I am here to help you take charge of your health, get empowered, and ultimately become the best version of yourself. Let's go. Hello and welcome back to the Girl Fit Method podcast. Guys, I've got a big one for you today. Well, actually, I've got a short one for you, but it's a big topic, and that is, should you be eating dairy and gluten? Now, dairy and gluten are two foods that are, number one, confusing, but I think a lot of people do have fear around them, and for good reason, because they have been demonized probably in the past, I'd say 10 years, and there is some evidence to suggest that some people shouldn't be eating dairy and gluten, and then there's evidence that it's actually really great for your overall health. So what I want to do today is kind of go over what both are, who should be eating it, and then who shouldn't be eating it. So the first thing I want to do is define and really get you guys to understand what on earth these two things are. So gluten, number one. So it's basically a protein, right? And it is found in wheats, barleys, rye, and really, really important we use it basically for when you're baking. It's kind of the glue that will hold all ingredients together to make your bread nice and fluffy and to rise. And it's been used for centuries, right? Gluten's been around, it's in these products. We've used whey protein. That's coming soon. Wheat, barley, and rye for centuries, right? So, and people have survived, people have lived long lives, and it's in so much of our food. Now, dairy is obviously pretty self-explanatory. It is produced from mammals. So we're talking about milk, cheeses, yogurts, all of those kinds of things. I think you're probably well over what dairy is and well across it. So I guess over the past few years, I've said, a lot of people have excluded or encouraged people to exclude dairy and gluten from their diets. And I remember doing this as well. I didn't eat dairy for the longest time. You guys know I was vegan, so obviously I wasn't eating dairy then, but I wasn't eating dairy before either. There was a lot of talk you've probably heard about, the hormones they pump into animals and then how we're drinking the milk and yada, yada. So that was a big fear of mine. I thought, well, it can't be good for you. And then gluten, I always heard, was inflammatory. So by eating gluten, that wasn't going to be good for my health either. That might be something that you feel. But there are actually circumstances where people shouldn't be eating dairy and gluten. So that's what I want to go over first of all. Obviously, first off, let's talk about dairy and someone that has lactose intolerance. Now, lactose intolerance is the inability to digest lactase, a sugar found in milk and dairy products. And so this So lactase is an enzyme that will help, that's produced in the small intestine, which your body isn't producing enough of it. So that then results in things like, bloating, cramping, constipation, diarrhea, all of those lovely things. Quick interruption. So if you want to win a $100 Gymshark voucher, I give one away per month to anyone that leaves a rating, review, and subscribes to the podcast. All you need to do is take a screenshot of that rating, review, send it to me on Instagram at Girl Fit Method podcast Instagram page, and you will go into the running. All right, back to the podcast. Next, I want to talk about celiac disease. Now, this is where when people ingest gluten, it actually damages the lining of their small intestine. So it has an immune response, meaning it prompts your immune system to attack the lining of your small intestine. So it's kind of stressing out your body, right? And then it can actually damage the intestinal lining. Now, a lot of symptoms with celiac disease are kind of absolutely you can deal with digestive issues. However, usually it'll also include things like rashes, skin breakouts, joint pain, as well as weakness, fatigue, headaches. And it's kind of essentially inflaming the body, and the body's just unable to digest it effectively and use it properly, right? Now, there's obviously proper diagnosis that you can get to check to see if you have a lactose intolerance and if you have celiac disease. Obviously, if you've got these two issues, then you can't be consuming dairy and gluten. You're basically like, let's just say, allergic to it, right? It's not going to be good for your health. But what I want to talk about now is autoimmune diseases, because this is where things kind of get a little bit grey and where people say that, okay, you've ruled out you don't have celiac disease, you're not lactose intolerant, or even just have an allergy to dairy, but it's inflammatory to your body. And this is true if you do have an autoimmune disease. So an autoimmune disease basically is when your immune system is mistakenly attacking its own cells, right? So your body's really attacking itself. And so some examples are like rheumatoid arthritis, we've got multiple sclerosis, type 1 diabetes. And what can happen is gluten and dairy can cause absolutely inflammation. If you're struggling with an autoimmune disease, it almost kind of exacerbates the problem. So, you know, when I think back with our girls as well, and if they come to us with any kind of autoimmune disease, we'll definitely put them on an anti-inflammatory diet. Now, an anti-inflammatory diet will remove dairy products as well as gluten. And that's just because your body, if you've got an autoimmune disease, is almost a little bit sensitive, right? So it's almost inflamed at the moment and it's not able to once again utilize both of those foods that contain gluten and dairy, kind of similar to if you had an allergy, right? So in those circumstances, absolutely, there's a reason not to consume both of those two products. And then we have, I guess, a little bit of a grey area here as well, where people can feel that they are, I think they say gluten intolerant. And this is where people feel like when they consume foods that do have gluten in them, or even dairy, that they find they have issues with digestion. There's also research to show that for some people, dairy can result in skin outbreaks, so pimples and, you know, things like that. There actually is evidence to suggest that, but this is going to very much be on an individual basis. What I now want to talk about is the actual benefits of these two foods, because they're not all bad. And I guess, once again, everything in context, right? So if you have an allergy to peanuts, then obviously peanuts are going to be the worst thing for you to eat. But if you can consume peanuts and you don't have an allergy to it, then peanuts have got great things in them for you. So let's talk about the benefits of consuming gluten. So gluten is a natural protein source. So once again, it actually contains protein in it, which can help count towards your total protein needs in a 24-hour period. It's obviously really good in baking. It's helpful for creating certain foods, usually baking things like bread. Psst, I just need to share a quick message with you all. So listen, if you are stuck under eating, over exercising and seeing no changes in your body and you are ready to make that change, head down to the show notes. We have an application form for our one-on-one coaching program that includes our 3-phased coaching method that has helped women across the world find food freedom and improve the look of their body. All right, back to the podcast episode. And then also when we look at whole grain foods, which will always contain gluten, they're amazing for our overall health, right? So they're really rich in essential nutrients, fiber, vitamins, minerals, and with gluten, because these products do contain fiber, this can really help with satiety as well and making you feel full and making you feel satisfied. Dairy, let's talk about some of the benefits of dairy. Dairy is actually really wonderful. So it's a great source of calcium, and we need calcium for our bone health, in particular women. So as we age, we go through menopause, and you might be quite young now, but this is really important to understand, is that we become more susceptible to something called what is it? No, I'm trying to think. It's just what's when you got brittle bones? No, what's the thing that you get? Osteoporosis. Okay, sorry. All right. One of the biggest benefits to dairy is going to be calcium. So calcium is incredible and essential to our bone health, and this is really important if you are a female. And the reason is that as we age, women become more susceptible to osteoporosis, which is brittle bones basically. So you break your bones quite easily. It is very painful and it's a horrible thing to have. And the reason for that is because estrogen will decrease as we get older, and estrogen is really important also to keep our bones nice and strong, right? So calcium is very important, especially as we're growing and actually throughout our life as females. So dairy, awesome source of calcium, which is really important to our overall health and obviously to our bone health. It's also very protein rich. Greek yogurt, an amazing source of protein. Milk is an amazing source of protein. Cottage cheese is an amazing source of protein. I consume these foods on a daily basis and they absolutely help me get my protein intake in while keeping my calories lower as well. The other thing as well is vitamin D. So dairy also contains vitamin D, which is super duper important for our overall health, our bone health once again. And there's a lot of research to show that vitamin D is very beneficial for our mental health too. And then obviously there's other essential nutrients in there like vitamin A, vitamin B12, phosphorus, potassium, all of these minerals and vitamins that are really important to our overall health. So, the other thing I want to touch on as well is gut health, because there is a lot of probiotics as well in a lot of dairy products too, which really help with our microbiome. And in fact, this is where we talk about, a lot of people will say gluten and dairy in particular, dairy can really cause digestive issues. But if your body is producing enough lactase, then your body's able to digest that lactose, and then it actually can be really beneficial for your gut health. So should you be eating dairy? Should you be eating gluten? Absolutely. There is nothing wrong with those two products unless you obviously have celiac disease, you have lactose intolerance. And if you do have lactose intolerance, it doesn't mean you can't have dairy. You can just have lactose-free foods, and there's lactose-free cheeses, yogurts, milk. So you're kind of not having to miss out on all of the vitamins and minerals in dairy. Gluten, different story if you've got celiac disease, but there's great alternatives to that as well. Other than that, there is no real hard research to show that these two foods are bad for our overall health. From what we see and from what research shows, it's actually really super beneficial. So I would advise all of you to be consuming it, obviously, unless you've got that autoimmune diseases or you've got those allergies. All right, guys, it was a quick and short one from me today. I hope you enjoyed this podcast episode. As usual, if you did enjoy it, please leave a rating, leave a review, screenshot it, send it to me. I give away a $100 USD Gymshark voucher to anyone that does leave a rating or review and lets me know once per month. All right, guys, until next time, big love,